The lobby was bright that Monday morning. Sunlight touched the marble floor like fingers of gold. Staff members stood in neat rows holding coffee cups. It was 8 a.m., time for the weekly safety briefing. But today something felt different. The air was tight like a rope pulled hard. Mr. Dunladi, the building manager, stood at the front. His suit was perfect, sharp enough to cut paper. He held a remote and pointed it at the screen. Click. An image appeared. A man slumped in a chair, head back, eyes closed. The timestamp read 3:41 a.m. This, Mr. Dunladi said coldly, is negligence. This is AOR night guard. Sleeping on duty. Zero tolerance. He turned to the crowd. AO stepped forward. A thin man rose from the back. His uniform was clean but worn. His face carried no anger, only quiet stillness. He walked forward and the crowd parted like water. Mr. Dunladi waved. Security, collect his badge. 2 officers removed the badge from AO's chest. The snap echoed in silence. AO didn't beg. He asked softly, "May I leave in peace?" Mr. Dunladi smiled without kindness. "Of course. We are professionals here." As AO turned, his shoulder dipped slightly, like he was favoring an injury. A cleaner named Miriam pressed something small into his palm as he passed. A bandage wrapped in cloth. No one else noticed. AO walked past the security turnstiles. The marble reflected his shape like water. The building was spotless, perfect, cold. He passed the desk where he used to sit, now empty like he'd never been there. As he walked, he winced. His sleeve pulled up, revealing faint purple bruises. Above him, a red camera blinked. He paused beneath it, looking up for just a second. His eyes were calm but held something deeper. Knowledge. Sadness. He pushed through the glass doors into the warm street. Traffic hummed. People rushed past, not looking twice. He found a bench near the bus stop and sat carefully, his ribs hurting. He unwrapped what Miriam had given him. Inside wasn't a bandage, it was folded paper. Written in blue pen, "Thank you for last night." AO stared at the note. Someone knew. Someone had seen. But who? Back inside, Mr. Dunladi walked down a dim hallway and stopped at a door marked CCTV control room. He looked left, then right. Then he stepped inside. The CCTV room was small and cold, walls lined with flickering screens. Mr. Dunladi stood before the console, tapping keys to open night logs. His finger hovered over delete. "Sir?" A young voice spoke. He spun. Lila, the IT intern, held a tablet nervously. "I was running backup protocol." Mr. Dunladi's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Purge all non-essential footage from the last 72 hours. Storage hygiene." "All of it?" Lila asked. "Yes. Keep only fire exits and main lobby." Lila nodded, but something felt wrong. She'd worked here 6 months, he'd never requested a purge. She noticed strange gaps in the timeline, missing chunks between 2:50 and 4 a.m. from 2 nights ago. After he left, Lila sat at the console, fingers moving fast. She opened a hidden folder with files labeled Service Hall, East Corridor, Rooftop Access. Her heart pounded. She pulled a thumb drive from her pocket and plugged it in. The files began copying. Footsteps echoed outside. 50%. The steps grew louder. 70%. She yanked the drive free and shoved it into her shoe as the door opened. A janitor poked his head in. Sorry, thought it was empty. When alone again, she opened Service Hall, 3:19 a.m., and clicked play. What she saw made her blood run cold. 2 nights earlier, the storm came fast and angry. Rain hammered like fists. Inside the lobby, lights flickered. The building felt hollow at night, like a giant shell. AO sat at the security desk. The clock ticked softly. 2:47 a.m. outside, the storm screamed. Inside, everything was still. Then he heard it, a faint tapping from the planter by the east wall. He knelt and moved fake leaves aside. A boy curled there, soaked, frightened. Around his wrist, a white hospital bracelet reading KI. The boy's eyes were wide with fear. "Please don't let them see me." AO didn't hesitate. He reached out. "You're safe with me." Just then, the automatic door slid open. Rain blew in. 2 men stepped inside wearing dark jackets, work boots. One carried a flashlight. The other tapped a metal baton. They didn't look like maintenance. They looked like hunters. AO glanced at the ceiling camera, knowing its angle and blind spot. He turned to Kai. "Stay close. Don't make a sound." The men began scanning the room like wolves. Their boots squeaked on wet marble. AO's heart pounded, but his face stayed calm. He had one chance to save this child. Ao moved quickly but quietly, leading Kai to the security desk. He draped his jacket over the opening, creating a curtain, then whispered, "Get under. Stay still. Don't move no matter what." Kai crawled beneath. Ao sat and leaned back, tilting his head, arms loose. His eyes half closed. To anyone watching the camera, he looked asleep. But inside, every nerve was awake. The men moved closer. One tapped his baton on the counter. "Wake up, old man." Ao didn't move, letting his chest rise and fall slowly. The man tapped harder. Ao snorted as if disturbed by dreams but didn't open his eyes. The other man laughed. "He's out cold." The first leaned close. "We're looking for something. You seen anything strange?" Ao cracked one eye. "Storm knocked the power. Been quiet." The man studied him, then stepped back. "Check the east corridor." As they moved away, Ao reached down and squeezed Kai's wrist. A silent message, "I'm here." The men searched every corner. Then Ao saw one pull out a knife. The blade glinted cruelly. Just then the elevator dinged softly. The elevator doors opened. Mr. Dunladi stepped out in a raincoat, hood pulled over his head, clipboard in hand. He looked like someone called for an emergency, but his movements were too calm. Ao's heart sank. The two men nodded to the manager. Mr. Dunladi nodded back, a small gesture, quick and easy to miss. But Ao saw it. Mr. Dunladi walked toward the desk without looking at Ao. He stopped and spoke low to the men. "Handle the noise in the east corridor. Keep it clean." The men moved off. Mr. Dunladi adjusted his hood and returned to the elevator. Beneath the desk, Kai whispered, "They took my sister." Ao's jaw tightened. This wasn't random strangers. These were people with power, people who could move through locked doors. Under the desk, Ao found the silent alarm button and pressed it. Nothing. He pressed again. Still nothing. The storm had blown the circuit. The alarm was dead. No backup. No rescue. The men were heading back, patience running thin. One looked directly at Ao. "You sure you haven't seen a kid? Small? Soaking wet?" Ao shook his head. "Just rain and thunder." The man didn't believe him. That's when Ao made his choice. The man stepped closer, his partner boxing Ao in. The blade caught the light, a thin line of silver. The lobby felt smaller, colder. Ao knew he had seconds. If they searched the desk, Kai was dead. He stood slowly, hands out. "Look, brothers, I'm just a night guard. I see nothing, hear nothing, go home in the morning." One smirked. Smart man. But the other wasn't satisfied. "Then you won't mind if we look around." Ao needed to move them away. He made himself the target. "Wait, I heard something earlier. East corridor. Service hallway." The men exchanged looks. "You said it was quiet." Ao shrugged. "I lied. Didn't want trouble." The knife holder narrowed his eyes. "Show us." Ao grabbed his flashlight and walked toward the hallway, the men following. As he passed the desk, he knocked the torch to the ground. It clattered loudly. While bending to retrieve it, he glanced back. Kai's small face peeked out. Ao gave the tiniest nod. "Run." Kai understood. As they turned the corner, the boy crawled out and ran silently toward the janitor's closet. The hallway was narrow, dark, with flickering strip lights. Puddles leaked from the ceiling. "It was around here," Ao said, pointing to a door. "Open it." Before Ao could, the man grabbed his shoulder and spun him. "You're lying." The fist came fast, striking his ribs. The second punch hit Ao's chest, knocking the wind from him. He doubled over, coughing. One man grabbed his arm and twisted it behind his back. "Where's the kid?" Ao gritted his teeth. "I don't know what you're talking about." The man twisted harder. Something in Ao's shoulder popped, sharp, searing pain. But he didn't scream. The other pressed the blade to Ao's throat. "Last chance. Where is he?" Ao looked up steadily. "Even if I knew, I wouldn't tell you." The man's face twisted with rage. He struck Ao across the face. Blood filled Ao's mouth. He spat and wiped his lips. Then he smiled. "You'll never find him. He's safe now." They realized they'd been tricked. One cursed and shoved Ao to the ground. "Let's search the floors." They left him slumped against the wall, bleeding and gasping. Ao waited until their footsteps faded, then painfully pushed to his feet. He limped to the janitor's closet and knocked twice, once, twice. The door cracked. Kai's tear-streaked face appeared. "Are you okay?" the boy whispered. Ao nodded despite his body screaming. "Stay here until morning. Don't open for anyone but me." "What about my sister?" Ao knelt, wincing. "I'll find her. I promise." He locked the door with his master key, stumbled back to the desk, and collapsed. His vision swam. His body begged for rest. His head lolled back, eyes fluttering closed. That's when the camera captured the image that would ruin him. Dawn crept through the windows. The storm had passed. The air smelled clean, but the silence was heavy. Ao woke with a gasp, body stiff, every muscle screaming. He remembered the boy, the men, the beating. He touched his ribs and winced. He stood slowly and limped to the restroom. Inside, fluorescent lights buzzed. He turned on the tap, letting cold water run. He splashed his face. It stung the cut on his lip. In the mirror, dried blood on his chin, swollen left eye, purple bruises forming on jaw and neck. He pulled up his sleeve, more bruising where the man had grabbed him. He wet paper towels, cleaning himself carefully. He couldn't go home looking like this. His wife would ask questions he couldn't answer. He threw bloodied towels in the trash, covering them with more paper. Then he returned to his desk and sat, exhausted, head resting back. Just for a moment, he told himself. But the moment stretched. His eyes grew heavy. He drifted into sleep. That's when Mr. Dunladi returned at 5:30 a.m., earlier than usual. Fresh suit, neat hair, calm face. He glanced around. Everything looked normal. Then he saw Ao slumped in the chair, head back, eyes closed. Mr. Dunladi smiled and pulled out his phone. The camera shutter sounded loud. Ao didn't wake. Mr. Dunladi looked at the photo. Timestamp 5:34 a.m. perfect. He walked to the elevator without a word. Upstairs, he accessed the security system and began deleting files. Service hallway. Rooftop. East corridor. All gone. He leaned back, satisfied. Problem solved. But he'd made one mistake. He didn't know about Lila and the copied files. The truth, once recorded, never truly dies. Monday morning came. The lobby filled with staff in neat uniforms. The weekly briefing was Mr. Dunladi's stage, his moment to show control. Today he had a lesson to teach. The crowd settled. He stood at the front, arms crossed, expression hard. Behind him, the screen displayed Ao slumped in the chair. This, he announced, is what happens when discipline fails. The crowd murmured. Some looked uncomfortable. Others whispered. Ao was called forward. He walked slowly, body aching. He didn't defend himself or beg. He stood silent and steady as his badge was removed. As he turned to leave, Miriam pressed the wrapped note into his hand. Her eyes said, "I believe you." Ao walked out past the marble and glass, past the cold perfection. He didn't look back. Inside, Lila sat at her desk, the thumb drive hidden. She'd watched the scene and something didn't sit right. She'd seen the footage gaps, the bruises on Ao's face. She opened her laptop, inserted the drive and clicked, Service Hall, 3:19 a.m. The video played. She saw Ao leading the men away, taking the beating, protecting someone with his body. Her hand covered her mouth. Oh my God. She scrolled through other files. The rooftop footage. The exchange between Dunladi and the men. The boy under the desk. The pieces came together. She had a choice. Delete the files and protect her job, or do something dangerous and right. She looked at Ao's battered face on screen, his eyes filled with quiet courage. She thought about the boy, the truth buried under lies. She reached for her phone and messaged Miriam. Did you see anything that night? Reply. Only blood in the sink. And a boy's whisper. Lila's fingers flew across the keyboard. She began building a plan to show the world what really happened. Lila arrived early the next morning. The building was quiet, peaceful. She went to the staff canteen where Miriam was wiping tables. You got my message, Lila said. Miriam nodded. I've been thinking about that night ever since. They sat at a corner table. Lila opened her tablet and pressed play. Miriam's eyes widened, watching Ao protect the boy, endure the beating, watching Dunladi's nod to the men. When it ended, Miriam's hand covered her heart. That man is a hero. And he was fired for it, Lila said. We have to do something. We need help. Alone, Dunladi will bury us too. Miriam thought. There's Baba, the old custodian. He's been here longer than anyone. He doesn't fear Dunladi. Can you bring him? 20 minutes later, Baba arrived with his thermos. He sat with a grunt. You two look like you're planning a revolution. Lila showed him the footage. Baba watched silently. When it finished, he sipped tea slowly. I always knew Dunladi was a snake. Never thought he'd go this far. What do we do? Miriam asked. Baba leaned forward. We show the world. But we must be smart. Dunladi controls the systems. I have copies. Lila held up the drive. Baba nodded. Copies aren't enough. We need witnesses, a moment when he can't run or delete anything. The next briefing, Miriam said. In 2 days. The whole staff will be there. Baba smiled. Perfect. We'll turn his stage against him. They spent an hour planning. Lila would cue the footage. Miriam would watch exits. Baba would handle technical support. But they needed one more thing, the boy. If Kai was alive, his testimony would be the final piece. I'll search for him, Miriam said. They stood and shook hands. The truth would come out, no matter the cost. The next day, Miriam moved through the building like a ghost, cleaning cart rolling floor to floor. She checked closets, storage rooms, stairwells. She asked other cleaners about a small boy. No one had seen him. By late afternoon, hope was fading. Maybe the men had found him. Maybe he was gone. Then, on the 15th floor near an unused conference room, she heard rustling. She stopped and listened. There it was again inside the room. She opened the door slowly. The room was dark, curtains drawn, dust hanging like fog. Behind stacked chairs in the corner, Kai. He looked up with frightened eyes. It's okay, Miriam knelt. I'm a friend. I know Ao. He sent me. Kai's face changed. Ao? Is he okay? Miriam nodded, heart aching. He's safe. But he needs your help now. She reached out. Kai hesitated, then took her hand. She led him down the back stairwell to the canteen where Lila and Baba waited. Kai shrank back. Who are they? Friends, Miriam said. We're going to help you and Ao. Baba knelt eye level with the boy. Kai, we know what happened. We need you to be brave one more time. Can you do that? Kai looked at each of them, then nodded. Lila showed him video of Ao protecting him. Kai's eyes filled with tears. He saved me. Yes, Lila said. And now we're going to save him. That night they hid Kai in Baba's basement office, a concrete room with a cot and heater. Miriam brought food. Lila brought a blanket. Tomorrow, Baba told him, we show everyone the truth. And you'll be the one who speaks it. Kai looked scared but determined. What about my sister? Baba's face darkened. We'll find her too. I promise. The next morning, briefing day, Mr. Dinladi was in high spirits. He'd scheduled a motivational speech about loyalty and discipline, even ordered catering. But he didn't know his downfall was being carefully prepared. The morning of the briefing arrived cold and gray. The lobby was packed with staff members filling every chair, lining the walls, standing near the elevators. The air buzzed with quiet conversation and the smell of fresh coffee and pastries that Mr. Dinladi had ordered. At the front, the large screen displayed the company logo, spinning slowly in endless rotation. Mr. Dinladi stood at the podium in his finest suit, a deep navy blue that caught the light perfectly. His shoes were polished to a mirror shine. He looked like a man who had already won. Good morning, everyone, he began, his voice smooth as silk. Thank you all for being here on this important day. The crowd settled into their seats, some still holding paper plates with croissants and fruit. Today, Mr. Dinladi continued, I want to talk about what makes this company truly great. 3 simple words: discipline, standards, and accountability. He paused for effect, letting the words hang in the air. A few people nodded politely. Others sipped their coffee, waiting. We all know that success doesn't come from talent alone. It comes from following the rules. It comes from doing what's right, even when no one is watching. He smiled, his teeth white and perfect. And when someone fails to meet our standards, we must act. Not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. In the back of the room, near the AV control panel, Lila stood with her tablet in hand. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. Beside her, Baba leaned against the wall, his weathered face calm but his eyes sharp and alert. Miriam stood near the side door, one hand resting on the handle, ready. Mr. Dinladi clicked his remote. The screen changed to show the now familiar image. Ao slumped in the security chair, head back, eyes closed, timestamp glowing in the corner, 3:41 a.m. Last week, Mr. Dinladi said, his voice taking on a harder edge, we had to make a difficult decision. We had to let go of someone who chose comfort over duty. Someone who thought the rules didn't apply to him. He gestured toward the screen. This man sleeping on the job is exactly the kind of behavior we cannot and will not tolerate in this organization. A few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others whispered to each other. Someone near the front cleared their throat. Mr. Dinladi raised his voice slightly. I know some of you may feel sympathy. You may think we were too harsh. But I ask you, what would happen if we all decided the rules didn't matter? What would happen if... That's when Lila looked at Baba. He gave her the smallest nod, so slight that no one else would notice. It was time. Lila's fingers moved to her tablet. She tapped 3 times, entering the override code she had programmed the night before. Her hands were shaking, but her resolve was steel. On the screen, the company logo flickered once, then twice. Mr. Dunladi frowned and clicked his remote again. Nothing happened. He clicked it several more times, faster now, a hint of irritation crossing his face. "Apologies," he said, forcing a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "We seem to be having some technical difficulties. Just give us one moment." He turned toward the AV booth and made a sharp gesture with his hand. But the technician there shrugged helplessly. His controls had been locked out. Mr. Dunladi's smile tightened. "Someone fix this. Now." But the screen didn't go blank. Instead, it filled with new footage. The timestamp in the corner read 2:47 a.m., 2 nights before the briefing. The image was grainy but clear enough. The crowd leaned forward, confused. What were they watching? The video showed the lobby at night. Rain hammered against the tall windows. Lightning flashed in the distance. The empty space looked haunted, cold. Then Ao appeared on screen, walking slowly across the marble floor. He stopped near the large planter by the east wall and knelt down. His hands moved gently, pushing aside the fake green leaves. And then everyone saw him, a small boy, soaking wet, curled into a ball, shaking with fear. Gasps rippled through the crowd like a wave. Mr. Dunladi's face drained of color. His mouth opened, then closed. He spun toward the AV booth. "Turn that off," he shouted. "Turn it off right now." But Lila had locked the system completely. The video continued to play, unstoppable, undeniable. Lila's fingers moved across the keyboard. The company logo on the screen flickered once, then disappeared. Mr. Dunladi frowned and clicked his remote again. Nothing happened. "Technical difficulties," he said with a forced smile. "Give us a moment." But the screen didn't go blank. Instead, new footage began to play. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m., 2 nights before. The crowd leaned forward, confused. The video showed the lobby at night. Rain pounded the windows. Then Ao appeared on screen, walking toward the planter. He knelt down and pulled aside the leaves. A small boy emerged, soaking wet and terrified. Gasps filled the room. Mr. Dunladi's face went pale. "Turn that off," he snapped. "Now." But Lila had locked the system. The video continued. They watched as Ao hid the boy under the desk. They watched as 2 men entered, armed and dangerous. They watched as Ao positioned himself to look like he was sleeping, protecting the child with his own body. "That's not what happened," Mr. Dunladi said, his voice rising. This is doctored footage. Fake." The video cut to the service hallway. The crowd watched in silence as Ao was beaten, punched, kicked. They saw him bleeding on the floor. They heard him say, "You'll never find him. He's safe now." Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." The video switched again. This time it showed the rooftop access. 2 men met a figure in a raincoat. Keys changed hands. Money was exchanged. And then the figure turned slightly toward the camera. It was Mr. Dunladi. The room exploded with murmurs. People stood from their chairs. Mr. Dunladi raised his hands. "That's not, I can explain." But before he could finish, a small voice cut through the noise. "He saved me." Every head turned. From the side door, Kai stepped into the lobby. He was holding Ao's spare badge in his small hands like a shield. Miriam walked beside him, her hand on his shoulder. "He saved me," Kai said again, louder this time. His voice shook, but his eyes were clear. "Those men wanted to hurt me. They took my sister. But Ao protected me. He didn't sleep. He fought for me." The crowd was silent now, every eye on the small boy. Mr. Dunladi stepped down from the podium, his face twisted with anger. "This is absurd. The boy is confused. He doesn't know what he's saying." Kai looked directly at him. "You were there. You told them where to look." Mr. Dunladi opened his mouth, then closed it. His carefully constructed world was crumbling around him. And then, from the back of the room, the main doors opened. Police officers entered, 4 of them, their uniforms pressed and badges gleaming. Behind them walked a woman in a long coat, her hair silver, her face stern but kind. It was Mrs. Adeyemi, the founder of the company. The crowd parted like water. She walked slowly to the center of the room, her cane tapping on the marble floor. She looked at the screen, still frozen on Mr. Dunladi's face during the rooftop exchange. Then she looked at Kai. Her expression changed. Her eyes widened. Her hand went to her mouth. "Impossible," she whispered. Mrs. Adeyemi walked toward Kai slowly, as if afraid he might disappear. She knelt down in front of him, ignoring the pain in her old knees. She studied his face, his eyes, his nose, the shape of his chin. Then she saw the bracelet on his wrist, the white hospital band with his name. But it wasn't the name that made her gasp. It was the small charm attached to it, a tiny silver moth, engraved with delicate wings. Her hand trembled as she reached out and touched it. "Where did you get this?" Kai looked down at the charm. "My mama gave it to me. She said it was from my grandmother. She said it would keep me safe." Mrs. Adeyemi's eyes filled with tears. "Your mama?" she whispered. "What is her name?" "Zainab," Kai said softly. The room went completely silent. Everyone knew that name. Zainab Adeyemi, the founder's daughter. The woman who had disappeared 5 years ago after a bitter family dispute. The woman everyone assumed had left the country and never looked back. Mrs. Adeyemi's hand covered her mouth. Her whole body shook. "Zainab is your mother?" Kai nodded. She pulled the boy into her arms and held him tight. "You're my grandson," she whispered into his hair. "My grandson." The crowd stood frozen, witnessing something sacred and broken being made whole again. Mrs. Adeyemi pulled back and cupped Kai's face in her hands. "Your mother. Where is she?" Kai's face crumpled. "I don't know. The men took us from our house. They separated us. They took my sister too. I ran, but I couldn't help them." Mrs. Adeyemi stood, her face no longer soft. It was hard now, filled with a grandmother's rage. She turned to Mr. Dinladi, who stood near the podium, pale and sweating. "Explain," she said, her voice cutting through the air like a blade. "Now." Mr. Dinladi stammered. I didn't know who the boy was. I was just what?" Mrs. Adeyemi stepped closer. "Just selling out my family? Just helping kidnappers? Just covering it up and firing the one man who tried to protect him?" Mr. Dinladi's mouth opened and closed like a fish. No words came out. One of the police officers stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've been investigating a trafficking ring for months. We received an anonymous tip yesterday with video evidence pointing to this building. We came to make arrests." Mrs. Adeyemi nodded. "Then arrest him." She pointed at Mr. Dinladi. Wait. Mr. Dinladi raised his hands. "You don't understand. They told me it was just business. A deal. They needed access to the building for one night. They said no one would get hurt." "Who told you?" the officer demanded. Mr. Dinladi's face twisted. "Your nephew, Malik." The room gasped. Mrs. Adeyemi's face went white. Malik was her late son's child, a man who had always resented her success, who had fought for control of the company and lost. "Malik wanted me out," Mrs. Adeyemi said slowly, the pieces falling into place. "He wanted the company. And he knew Zainab's children would be leverage." Mr. Dinladi nodded miserably. "He said if we pressured you enough, you'd step down. So, let him take over. He said it was just business." "Just business," Mrs. Adeyemi repeated, her voice cold. "You sold out a child for business." The officer pulled out handcuffs. "Mr. Dinladi, you're under arrest for conspiracy, child endangerment, and obstruction of justice." Mr. Dinladi didn't resist. He looked small now, defeated. As the officers led him away, he glanced back at the crowd. No one met his eyes. After Mr. Dinladi was taken away, the room remained tense. Mrs. Adeyemi turned to the officers. "What about my daughter? And the girl, Kai's sister?" The lead officer, a tall man with kind eyes, stepped forward. "Ma'am, we've been running a coordinated operation. Based on the footage we received and the information Mr. Dinladi just provided, we've located a property on the outskirts of the city. Our team is moving in now." Mrs. Adeyemi gripped her cane tightly. "I want to be there." "Ma'am, that's not." "I want to be there," she repeated, her voice like iron. The officer nodded. "Then we leave now." Mrs. Adeyemi turned to Kai. "Stay here with Miriam. I'll bring your sister back. I promise." Kai's eyes were wide with hope and fear. "And my mama?" Mrs. Adeyemi's voice softened. "I'll bring her home too." She started toward the door, then stopped. She turned back to the crowd. "Where is Ao?" The room went silent. People looked at each other. No one knew. Lila stepped forward. "He was fired 2 days ago. He left. We don't know where he went." Mrs. Adeyemi's jaw tightened. "Find him. Bring him to me. That man is a hero, and I will not let him disappear into the shadows." She looked at Baba. You seem to know this building better than anyone. Find Ao." Baba nodded. "I'll find him, ma'am." Mrs. Adeyemi left with the police. The crowd slowly dispersed, still in shock, still processing everything they had witnessed. But Lila, Miriam, and Baba stayed behind with Kai. Do you know where Ao lives? Lila asked Baba. Baba shook his head. He never talked much about his personal life. But I know someone who might. He pulled out his phone and made a call. After a few rings, a voice answered. Hello. Samuel, Baba said. It's me. I need Ao's address. It's urgent. There was a pause. Then Samuel, another guard who had worked with Ao, gave him the information. 20 minutes later, Baba and Lila were in a taxi heading to the address. It was a small neighborhood on the edge of the city, where houses were packed close together and children played in the dusty streets. They found Ao's house, a modest building with peeling paint and a tin roof. Baba knocked on the door. A woman answered, her face tired and worried. Yes, she said. We're looking for Ao, Baba said. Is he here? The woman's face hardened. He's resting. He came home 2 days ago beaten and broken. You won't tell me what happened. And now you come looking for him? Please, Lila said. We need to speak with him. It's important. The truth has come out. He's not in trouble. He's a hero. The woman studied them for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. He's in the back room. They followed her through the small house. In a dim room at the back, Ao lay on a thin mattress. His face was still bruised, his shoulder wrapped in bandages. He looked up when they entered. Baba, he said, his voice weak. What are you doing here? Baba knelt beside him. The truth came out, my friend. The whole building saw the footage. They know what you did. They know you're a hero. Ao shook his head. I'm no hero. I just did what was right. That's exactly what a hero is, Lila said. Ao sat up slowly, wincing. His wife, Patience, brought him water. He drank it carefully, then looked at Baba and Lila. The boy, Ao said. Kai, is he safe? He's safe, Lila said. He's with Mrs. Adeyemi. She's his grandmother. Ao's eyes widened. His grandmother? Baba nodded. The founder's daughter, Zainab, is his mother. The men who came that night were trying to kidnap him. They wanted to use him and his sister to force Mrs. Adeyemi to step down and hand over the company. Ao closed his eyes and let out a long breath. I didn't know. I just knew he needed help. That's why it matters, Lila said. You didn't know who he was. You didn't know there was money or power involved. You just saw a scared child and protected him. Ao looked down at his bandaged hands. What happened to the manager? Arrested, Baba said. Along with the men who hurt you. The police are raiding a property now to find Kai's sister and mother. Ao nodded slowly. Then he looked at his wife. I'm sorry I didn't tell you. Patience sat beside him and took his hand. You were trying to protect me. I understand now. There was a knock at the door. Patience went to answer it. A moment later, she returned with a young police officer. Mr. Ao, the officer said. I'm here to escort you to the station. Mrs. Adeyemi requested your presence. Ao looked alarmed. Am I in trouble? The officer smiled. No, sir. Quite the opposite. Ao stood with Baba's help. Patience insisted on coming with him. They all climbed into the police vehicle and drove back toward the city. The ride was quiet, each person lost in their own thoughts. When they arrived at the police station, they were led to a large room. Inside, Mrs. Adeyemi sat at a table. Beside her were two girls. One was about 10 years old, with braids and frightened eyes. The other was older, in her 30s, thin and tired but alive. Kai sat on Mrs. Adeyemi's other side. When he saw Ao, he jumped up and ran to him. Ao, he cried, throwing his arms around the guard's waist. Ao knelt down, ignoring the pain, and hugged the boy back. You're okay, he whispered. You're okay. Kai pulled back, tears streaming down his face. They found my sister. And my mama. Ao looked up. The older woman, Zainab, stood and walked toward him. Her eyes were filled with tears. You saved my son, she said, her voice breaking. You saved my boy. Ao stood slowly. I'm just a guard, ma'am. No, Zainab said, shaking her head. You're more than that. You're the reason my family is whole again. She reached out and took his hand. Mrs. Adeyemi stood as well and joined them. Ao, the founder said, her voice strong and clear. You risked your life for my grandson. You stood against evil when no one else would. You lost your job, your dignity, your peace, all for a child you didn't even know. Ao looked down, humble and uncomfortable with the attention. Mrs. Adeyemi continued. I'm offering you a position. Head of security and safeguarding for the entire company. You will have the authority to rebuild the department, hire good people, and ensure nothing like this ever happens again. Ao looked up, stunned. Ma'am, I accept it, Patience whispered beside him. You deserve it. Ao looked at his wife, then at Kai, then at Mrs. Adeyemi. Slowly he nodded. I accept. Thank you. The room erupted in quiet applause. Even the police officers smiled. The days that followed were a whirlwind. News of the kidnapping plot spread across the city. Reporters gathered outside the building, cameras flashing. Mrs. Adeyemi held a press conference and told the world what happened, praising Ao as a man of uncommon courage. Ao's face appeared on the news. Strangers stopped him to shake his hand. His wife cried tears of pride. But the most important moment came a week later. Mrs. Adeyemi called a special assembly. The lobby was packed, but this time the atmosphere was different. No tension, only respect. Mrs. Adeyemi stood at the podium. Beside her stood Ao in a new uniform with a badge reading, Head of Security. I want to tell you a story, she began. A story about true strength. She gestured to the screen showing footage of Ao protecting Kai. The crowd watched silently. When it ended, she spoke again. This man was humiliated here. He was fired and sent away. But he didn't break because he knew the truth. She paused. And now the truth has set him free. Ao is our head of security and a reminder that doing what is right matters more than doing what is easy. The crowd erupted in applause. Ao stood quietly, eyes glistening. Mrs. Adeyemi raised her hand. One more thing. I'm establishing a fund in Ao's name for employees facing hardship and training programs teaching security personnel to protect people, not just property. More applause followed. After the assembly, Kai and Amina hugged Ao. You're our hero, Amina said. Ao smiled. No, you're both heroes for surviving. Zainab approached with tears. Thank you. I'll never repay you. Ao shook his head. Seeing you together is enough. Mrs. Adeyemi joined them. You gave me a second chance with my family. Grace remembers what pride forgets. Ao nodded. I'll remember that, ma'am. In the weeks following, the company changed. Mr. Dinladi's office was emptied, his name removed. He awaited trial with the men who attacked Ao and Malik, who orchestrated everything. Ao moved into his new office with a window facing the rising sun. He hired back loyal security members and brought in young people eager to learn. Lila was promoted to IT security manager. Mariam became head of building services. Baba became senior advisor. Together they rebuilt the department with new cameras, upgraded alarms, and clear emergency protocols. But more importantly, they built a culture of care. Security meant protecting people now. One afternoon, Kai and Amina visited with their mother. We wanted to visit, Kai said shyly. Ao smiled. You're always welcome. They sat together, talking and laughing. Kai shared about his new school. Amina discussed her art classes. Zainab talked about slowly rebuilding her relationship with her mother. It's not easy, Zainab admitted. We lost time. But we're trying. Ao nodded. That's all any of us can do. As they left, Kai turned back. Ao? Yes. When I grow up, I want to be like you. Ao's throat tightened. Then be kind. Be brave. And always protect those who can't protect themselves. Kai nodded seriously, then ran to catch his sister. Months passed. The company thrived under Mrs. Adeyemi's renewed leadership. Zainab took a position in community outreach, helping families torn apart by violence. Ao settled into his role, training his team rigorously but fairly. He walked the building every night, checking locks, testing alarms, greeting staff. He remembered feeling invisible and ensured no one felt that way again. One evening, Ao found a young guard asleep at his post, head tilted back. He stood remembering the photograph that almost destroyed him. He could have reported the guard, made an example. Instead, he gently tapped the man's shoulder. The guard jerked awake, eyes wide. Sir, I'm sorry. Ao raised his hand. How long have you been on shift? 16 hours, sir. Double shift because my partner called in sick. Ao nodded. Go home. Rest. Tomorrow come to my office. We'll discuss proper scheduling. The guard blinked. You're not firing me? No. But I'll make sure this doesn't happen again. We take care of each other here. The guard's eyes filled with tears. Thank you, sir. As Ao walked away, he felt deep peace. He had turned pain into purpose, shame into strength. On the anniversary of the night Kai was saved, Mrs. Adeyemi held a special ceremony. Staff gathered in the lobby, now bright and warm. A plaque was unveiled near the security desk. In honor of Ao, who taught us that true strength is found in service. May we never forget that protecting the weak is the highest calling. Ao stood beside it with his wife and team. Kai's family stood in front, clapping proudly. Mrs. Adeyemi addressed the crowd. 1 year ago, darkness tried to enter this building through greed and violence. But it was stopped by one man who chose to stand in the gap. She turned to Ao. You remind us that heroism is not loud or flashy. It is quiet, steady, and selfless. Thank you, Ao. The crowd stood and applauded. Ao bowed his head humbly. After the ceremony, people came to shake his hand and thank him. But his eyes kept returning to Kai. The boy stood with his grandmother, sister, and mother. They were whole, safe, loved. And that, Ao thought, was worth everything. That night after the ceremony, Ao sat alone in his office. The building was quiet, just the hum of air conditioning and distant traffic. He looked out at the city lights, thinking about how much had changed. A soft knock came. Come in, Ao said. Mrs. Adeyemi entered with her cane and sat across from him. You've done well. The department has never been stronger. Thank you, ma'am. She was quiet, then spoke. I need to tell you something. That night when you saved Kai, you also saved me. I had given up on my family, thought my daughter was gone forever, that I'd die alone. Her voice cracked. But you brought them back. You gave me a second chance. Ao shook his head gently. I only did what anyone should do. But not everyone would, she said. You didn't calculate the cost. You just acted. She pulled an envelope from her bag. This is for you. Ao opened it. Inside was a check. The amount made his eyes widen. Ma'am, I can't. Yes, you can. Use it for your family. Build something good. Ao looked at the check, then at her. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep being who you are and teaching others what integrity means. Ao nodded. I will. Mrs. Adeyemi stood to leave. At the door she paused. One more thing. I'm making you a board advisor. I want your voice in the room when decisions are made. Before Ao could respond, she was gone. The next morning, Ao sat at his kitchen table with Patience, drinking tea and watching the sunrise. What are you thinking about? Patience asked. How quickly life changes. One moment you're nobody. The next, people call you a hero. You were never nobody, Patience said. Not to me. Not to God. Ao smiled. But it's strange how the world works. Sometimes doing your job means saving a life, Patience said. They sat in comfortable silence. Then Patience spoke again. What will you do with the money? Ao thought. I want to open a training center for young people who want security work but can't afford courses. I want to teach them more than watching cameras. I want to teach them to care. Patience squeezed his hand. That's a good dream. Later, Ao visited Baba in his basement office. Baba, I want to thank you. Without you, Lila and Miriam, the truth would still be buried. Baba waved dismissively. We only did what was right. Just like you. Still, I'm grateful. Baba smiled. You know what the old people say? Truth is like the sun. You can hide it for a while, but it always rises. As Ao walked through the building, he noticed people looked at him differently now, with respect. Guards nodded. Cleaners smiled. Executives greeted him by name. The building that once felt cold now felt warm. 6 months later, Ao stood before a small building on the city's edge. It was modest but solid, with fresh paint and a new sign, the Ao Center for Security Training. Inside were classrooms, a gym, and a computer lab. It was functional and full. 20 young people sat listening as Ao taught his first lesson. Security is not just about locks and cameras. It's about people. It's about seeing someone in danger and choosing to act. The students listened intently. One young man raised his hand. Sir, what if acting means losing your job? Ao smiled. Then you lose your job. But you keep your soul. The room was quiet. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying it's right. And in the end, doing what is right is all that matters. After class, a shy girl approached. Sir, I heard about what you did. Is it true? Ao nodded. It's true. Were you scared? Yes, he said honestly. But I was more afraid of doing nothing. The girl smiled. I want to be like you. Ao placed a hand on her shoulder. Then be brave and kind. The world needs both. Later, Lila arrived with her laptop. You need to see this. She showed him a news report about the training center featuring Mrs. Adeyemi saying, this center represents everything Ao stands for. He's passing on true leadership to the next generation. Ao smiled. I didn't expect this. Get used to it, Lila said. You're famous now. Ao shook his head. I'm just a teacher. You're more than that. You're proof that good people still exist. A year after the training center opened, Ao received an invitation from the National Security Council to speak at their annual conference. Ao was nervous, but patience encouraged him. They need to hear from someone who lived it. The conference hall was massive, filled with hundreds of security professionals. Ao stood at the podium. "My name is Ao, and I'm just a night guard." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "I don't have fancy degrees or military training. I only have one thing, a belief that every life matters." He told the story, about Kai, the storm, the beating, being fired, and the truth coming to light. When he finished, silence filled the room. Then slowly people stood clapping. The applause grew louder, filling the hall. After his speech, people lined up to shake his hand. Among them was a young woman. "I was there the day you were fired. I was an HR intern. I watched them humiliate you and did nothing." Ao looked at her kindly. "It's okay." "No," she said, tears flowing. "But watching what happened changed me. I left that company and now fight corruption. Because of you." Ao smiled. Then something good came from the pain. That evening, Ao returned home. Kai's family was waiting with cake, balloons, and laughter. "We heard about your speech," Zainab said. Kai hugged Ao. "You're still my hero." Ao knelt and looked the boy in the eyes. "And you're mine. You were brave when it mattered most." Later, on his balcony, Patience joined him. "What are you thinking?" "About how grace turns shame into honor, how it makes broken things whole." "You've changed so many lives," Patience said. Ao shook his head. "No, I just did what was right. The rest was God." Somewhere in the city, in a building with marble floors, a new night guard sat at the security desk. On the wall hung Ao's photograph and a quote, "Grace remembers what pride forgets." The guard read it and nodded. Then he sat up straighter and began his watch. His job wasn't just protecting property. It was protecting people. And that made all the difference. The end. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please share your thoughts in the comments section and tell us where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so